This show is sponsored by the ComX Shop. We hope you enjoy the show.
All right, g'day. Welcome to another episode of Tuesday Chinwag. My name is Leigh Chalker, the creator of the Australian independent comic book Battle for Bustle, published through ComX Studios. So when the little yellow ticker box comes up across the bottom, you will notice that there's two addresses, one for ComX network and the other for Aussieverse. Now that is the addresses of the two streams that we are basically shown live while we're doing this show. So you can follow those addresses to go and see the content of both of those sites and see what's out there, because there's a lot of stuff that you may enjoy. So basically, if you've never heard of them either and you love them, you want to support them, you like the shows, you like everything about Australian comics, do the most important thing you can do, which is like and subscribe them anywhere you can find them, because that helps the community grow, and that's a good thing for everyone. So this evening I have a guest that I've done a lot of live streams with him before. He's been around an awfully long time. I mean, the man has got a couple of his own shows going on, and he's a valued member of the community, and he's always in there trooping and slugging away and giving it everything he's got. And this evening I would like to introduce Mr. Edmund Kearsley. How are you, mate?
I'm good.
That's the ticket. That's the way. So all comments are welcome. So if I don't get to anyone, hello, Kerry. If I don't get to anyone, don't think I'm being rude, but I will try and come back. William, hello, mate. How you doing? And everyone's welcome to talk, ask questions, and we'll do what we can to answer them as best as we can. So the show is fluid. It's two dudes, two people, creators, just having a chinwag, and based on who, what, where, when, how, and why. So I always like to start with the lovely existential question that could go anywhere. Hello, Robbie Kearsley, you champion. So Ed, who are you, brother? For all the people who don't know.
I am a person who makes comic books.
And you've been making comic books for a long time, yeah?
I have. So I started taking it seriously in about 93.
Yep.
And then by about 97 was when I put my first self-published book out. So
yeah. But so what, mini comic, like self-published mini sort of thing?
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
If I'd thought about it, I would have got one.
Yeah, that's cool. You can poke around there, man, while we're having a yarn, and bring things up as you want to display them and stuff, because the show is all about you and your involvement.
There's an A4 side one. So just a photocopied A4 size book, which was the style at the time, because getting stuff printed, like at the offset printer back in the 90s, was cost thousands and thousands of dollars. So
that's certainly things are a lot easier now, aren't they? You hear, I don't know whether they're horror stories or magic. It's probably horror story about the production, but magic that so many creators got through, like to publish so many of their own comic books. Now you got a mate, Taylor Hislop. Yeah, that's his name from memory. And he's a good dude. He was telling me a story randomly one day about how more or less you trained yourself from a teenager, more or less, because you were writing stories, and the artists that you had just, didn't have the same gusto and oomph as what you had, man, to and build a finish. And then you just thought, oh, bugger it, I'll learn to draw. So What was that like? Because I want to talk to you about that, because I can't remember when I started drawing. I guess when I was a little tacker. But what was it like being a teenager and deciding that you were going to like train yourself to draw, man?
Well, I'd always like drawn my whole life, but it was around like grade 5 and 6 when there's some kids that were really good started like coming out, and there's always the best artist in the class sort of kid.
Yeah.
And I was that kid, so I was always still doodling and stuff, but never really took it seriously. And then when I did my first comic, which I do have here. So this is the story that I did in year 10. And so it's in my workbook, which had the first page ripped out because that's the only actual schoolwork I did in year 10. And then the rest is this. And if you have a look, you see it's like a manga style, because I was looking at an Area 88 comic. Which is an old manga. So I wrote the story in that just as, because I didn't know about scripts or anything. So I wrote it as a comic.
Yep.
And then I tried to get my mates who were good at drawing to draw it. And I got a good pen and got some paper and got them to come around my house, and they drew one page and they're like, "We're bored now, we're going." And so they nicked off, and I was like, "Oh, so I need to learn how to draw if I want to get a comic made."
So like you're doodling, you're scribbling away at school and stuff like that. Did you ever do any art classes or anything, or it just sort of was a natural thing for you just to be scribbling?
I always did through high school for the electives. I did art and graphics, but they were more bludge classes to get out of doing work. But
yeah, see, I treated, I think I was only ever good at English and history, man, and art, to be honest with you. It's like everything else. Hello, absent-minded. Nice to see you viewing in again. And thank you for your support, everyone. History and English and art were my three things, and I did really well in school in them, and everything else. So I think I was in attendance, but my body was there, but my mind certainly wasn't. So I can sympathize with that, man. It's but art was cool. What sort of art teacher did you have? Did you have someone that was like encouraging?
No, I had the art teacher. I went to primary school with her son.
Yeah,
and he was what I did call a snitch in the business. So he used to get me in trouble in primary school, but telling on the things I'd been doing. And then by the time I went to year 7, so 7 through 10, she was the art teacher, and she just didn't like me. Like it was the 90s. So once you're pegged as a bad kid, you're a bad kid. So
yeah. No, well, you and I are similar ages, man. So I remember going to school in the 90s, and I mean, look, I don't know what it's like now, but you are right. Even in North Queensland, if you were somewhat of a shady backstory, you were certainly watched a lot closer than let's say I would say the sporty crowd. So they could get away with anything in my school. So I was very sport orientated. I was lucky that I sort of was on the line between both of those, man, because I came from a sporty family, and one side was encouraged to do everything, but I was in the sporting teams as well, and art, and so I sort of tended to go okay with it. Ryan Christopher, how are you, mate? So my music teacher was my best friend's dad. Nightmare material. Yeah, because it would be, I guess, because I'm glad we're talking about like art classes and stuff, man, like in primary schools and secondary schools and that, because I had off the coast of Townsville, 5 kilometers off the coast is an island, and it's called Magnetic Island. It's called Magnetic Island because when Captain Cook's Endeavour went past, his compass went crazy. So it's always kept the name. And it's a really small community. It was a very small community. It's a bit more upmarket now, but it was a very small community of only about 2,000 people, and it's a ferry across, ferry back and stuff. And it was hippie, like orientated, man, like I'm talking hippie, people can read between the lines to that as they wish, It was a good party island, and I'll say that. And my art teacher lived there, and her name was Mrs. Margaret McConnell, and I remember her like really well because she was super encouraging, and quite frankly didn't care what you did, mate. You know what I mean? You could draw, next week you'd be making sculptures, next week you'd be printing t-shirts, next week it'd be like wood, like wood cutting and like printing and all of that. And yeah, she was really wild, man, with a lot of the stuff that she taught, so it was really cool. I mean, God, you could even go in there at lunchtime, mate, like when the old jocks were down there being eggheads and running around and throwing sausage rolls at people, you could hide out up in the art room. So it was really cool. But yeah, very encouraging, man. And like I guess her being from a hippie island, like we weren't looked down as badly as what other kids were in school, which was pretty good. Mind you, though, I've told the story before of my art class, and we collected comic books. We had a gig where we'd go to the library and photocopy the latest comic books and sell them to other, sell them to other kids in the school, man, for money and stuff. So we were making a pretty packet, until they cottoned onto us, which was a bit disappointing. But yeah, we were loaded for a while there, man. It was good. So anyway, good times. But Ed, so with your drawing and your hello Dave, how are you, champion? He's a good man. With your artwork and stuff, like you just mentioned before, that your first couple of pages there that survived the rip out of the first page were manga orientated. So what was the first comic books that little Ed was having a look at and having a read, man?
So from as far back as I can remember, I've always had comics in my life. And because my parents are from England, so I grew up on like Dandy and Beano, the humor comics, and Buster. And then later in the 80s, so it was getting into Mad Magazine, and there's a hey Nick, there's a British comic called Oink, which was kind of like Mad, but it was sort of like pig orientated, like the humor. And so I loved all that stuff. And then around that time in the late 80s, I was going to like all the Sunday markets and garage sales around my area once I had a bike. And I remember getting like a Green Lantern, Green Arrow, and Infinity Incorporated. And just all the weird late 80s stuff. I suppose it's the 70s, but just all the stuff people were getting rid of. And I never really got into that stuff at that time. I just like looking at the pictures and was more into the humor side of stuff. But then in 1990, for my birthday, my friend gave me like a stack of comic books for my birthday, and it was like the Batman of Only Place of Dying was in there, and that was like a big one for me, because after the Batmania of like 89, cards, and so that was
do you remember going to see Batman at the cinema? Did it blow your mind as a kid? I remember going too, man, and it was big. Like it was it was massive, man. It was really cool.
That was kind of the change, because the 66 show was always on TV through the 80s.
yeah.
And then seeing Batman portrayed in that different, like a more, say, serious tone.
Yep.
And
No,
then
I agree.
the comics are more like the Tim Burton movie.
Yeah. Look, I'm a big fan of Batman, mate, as people would know, like particularly the Alan Grant, Norm Breyfogle period of Detective Comics and Batman. Norm's still a huge favorite of mine, mate. So I often look back on those Batman comics, which with much joy. To be honest with you, at moments where you need a little bit of inspiration, and you're thinking to yourself, "Oh, I need to look at something," like, "Oh, go and have a look at some Norm Batman stuff," Yeah, that Tim Burton was Batman was like pivotal for a lot of us, I guess, at that age, because like a lot of the younger people that are listening, man, what's weird, and I'll go with like the little tangent off a little bit, but I'll bring it back in, is now there's such an influx of comic book movies, and look, that's cool, man. Like whatever, it's all good. Like it's all good. But even like when Batman came out, at that stage we'd only had, like, from my memory, we'd had the Superman movies, in the 70s. We got the Dolph Lundgren Punisher movie, you know what I mean? Which, look, to be honest with you, that's one of those little sneaky ones that every now and then, like, I don't mind, watching and reminiscing about,
So clearly shot in Australia when you're looking at the backgrounds and stuff. Like, it's clearly shot in Australia.
But it was cool because it almost used to be like ravenous for you to get those sort of things, and then you used to get a few random ones like Jean-Claude Van Damme's Time Cop, like, which was based on a comic book, and like, so it wasn't where it is now. But I happened to, maybe a fortnight ago, and I don't watch many movies now and stuff, like, I just don't have the time. I'd rather be reading and creating. But I sat down with my mum and it's like, we should watch a movie. And she's like, yeah, let's watch a movie. What are you choosing? And I was flicking, I couldn't find anything. And I came across Hulk with Eric Banner, right? And that one. And she's like, you got to be joking. And I'm like, nah, let's watch this. And we watched it. And as I was watching it, man, I realized to myself, like, it was done 20 odd years ago. And when that came out, there wasn't this Marvel or DC mania that there was now. Hey, you know what I mean? Like, that was like one of the, like, it just stood alone. It just suddenly Hulk came out, and then I guess whether you like it or not, they built everything to an extent around that, But no, it was cool seeing superheroes and that come through. But the Spider-Man movies were pretty cool. But what was in the stack of those comic books that your mate gave you?
It was there's two Spider-Mans, and there was one Batman. That might have been it. There might have been an X-Men or something, but maybe a Marvel. I think that was a Marvel Tales. There's like it would have been like a spectacular and an amazing, because he just went to the newsagents on the way to my birthday. Like, at the time I was like, oh, he didn't even try. But then it was like, oh, that was the best present of the thing. Yeah, I've been trying to figure out which of the Spider-Mans it was, because there's one with it's when the Paste Pot Pete turned into the Trapster. And he came back and changed his name. He's just the guy that shoots glue, so he can stick Spider-Man to stuff to stop him jumping around.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
And I believe it had a Hey Pete.
Hey Pete.
I think it had a big bright yellow cover. And then there might have been like a Wolverine, Spider-Man, Marvel Tales.
Yeah. Was that one of those cool ones with like a Todd McFarlane cover, like, and then with like reprints inside?
Yeah, it was a reprints one, but I didn't think it was Todd cover. But and then the Batman with the Lonely Place of Dying with the George Perez art, with which I think that's the only one I've still got the original, actual one of.
Did you read the others to death, mate?
Yeah, I know, but I've done purges through the years of like moving or going through periods of like, oh, I'm never gonna read these ones again, and then like
How
years
many?
later, it's like I wish I still kept them.
Yeah, I'm guilty of doing purges too over the years, man. You know, like at one stage, I like moving around and that. I had Dad's collection, and I'd been collecting, and I used to work like obviously like full time when I was younger, and that's when comic books were available at every newsagents, and newsagents were everywhere. You know, there were like 3 in a mall or 2 in a shopping center, and that, and like you could just pick up random comics. So every lunchtime, I was just buying random comics, man. And like, you know, you do that for a couple of months and you look over at your pile and suddenly it's like, whoa, okay. You know, there's a lot of comic books and some of them, you know, like aren't as good as others. And you do read a lot of stuff though, but yeah, purging, man. Like eBay was good in its day because you could, you know, like, look, I'll just skedaddle these ones. But do you like, with the because when you mentioned the comedy things that you enjoy and you're talking about like coming into the superhero stuff, I like, for everyone out there that doesn't know, we'll get into it more, but Ed does a comic book called Radical. And you know, like, when I guess when you're starting out and you're meeting people, you do swaps of your comic books. You know what I mean? That's how you sort of, you know, like, hey, you know, like, I'll swap you these for this, and you mail them off to each other. And there's this weird snail mail of, you know, like introducing yourself and you know, like getting to know each other and that. And Ed and I swapped our comics, and Radical was the ones that he sent me. Hello, Omnibo. How
Hey,
are
mate.
you? And you're recovering from last night's birthday, mate. And and I got Radical and laser balls. Exactly. I was just going to, man, one of the greatest comic book villains you'll ever come across is laser balls. Don't worry about a bloke that fires glue out of his hands and sticks Spider-Man to a wall. You know, we want more laser balls. So Ed, we should get a petition happening for you to do more laser ball comics. Um, Radical, man, is one of the, and that's him. Look at that dude. Hey, one of the greatest villains you'll ever see in a comic book anywhere is Laser Balls. Unbelievable. Like, made me laugh, man. What a great character. And he's a cool character too. But what I'm getting at is there's a superhero quality to your comic books, but there's also like, man, I did not realize how much I was laughing at like the dialogue and how you'd set everything up. Like literally, like honestly, laughing out loud, man, to the point where I was worried that the neighbors were going to hear me laughing out loud. You know, like if no one's read Radical, there's a particular point where, and it's not a spoiler, but the villains setting this thing up to take down the hero are in a secret lair, and they haven't revealed where their secret lair is, but they've got a group of villains, you know, like that they want to get a superhero team. And the entrance is the lair's been found. I'm not doing it justice, but you'll understand when you read it. And one of the dudes coming in bangs his elbow on the door, and it's hilarious, like just what happens after that. So I would strongly recommend Radical. Um, and it is actually one of my favorite comic books that I do go back to, Ed, and have a good like bit of a chuckle, because comic books make you feel good. You know, sometimes we're a little bit down every now and then, and you know, it's like when you draw and the drawers just don't cut it. You know, like some days you just feel like reading some goodness. You know, sometimes some wholehearted. You know, like goodness is just, you know, just, well, goodness. And for lack of, you know, like my you know, vocabulary. And but I definitely see how they coalesce those two, man, like your comedy and your superheroes. But when, because you did your printing, and so 1993, like, and you're in school, and I'm presuming you're around the, you know, like you're around the 45-year-old mark. I'm assuming. Yes, he is, Nick. Very funny
46.
man.
So it all kind of came about because in Year 10, there were all the teachers and everything started being focused towards what are you going to do for the rest of your life now.
No, as they do, yeah.
And work experience. So what do you want to
Yeah.
do for work experience? And I was like, oh, well, then if I have to do it forever, then I want to write comic books. I want to make up stories. And they were like, well, that's not a job. That doesn't exist. You can't do that. And I was like, oh, but I ended up working at a pet shop. There's what else do you like? I was like, oh, I like animals, like dogs and cats and stuff. Like, oh, cool. We'll stick you in a pet shop. But it really got me started on, like, once I made like this one, the first one.
Yeah.
It was kind of all over for me. Like, it's like, oh yeah, that's more fun than anything else. So I'll do that forever.
What was the fun part for you, man? Was it the sitting by yourself and seeing this, your imagery in the, your theater of your mind come to life on the paper?
Yeah, it's the creating part, like, because the actual getting down to structuring stuff and doing scripts and drawing is work, but the thinking up stuff is just creating universes in your mind and then trying to get your hands to communicate that to everyone else.
What's your process, mate? Like, does it vary, or are you very strict? Like, have you got a crack?
It's different for everything. Like with Radical, I did a full script and then rewrote it.
Yeah.
Like a couple of times for the first one. So that took about a year to just write, because I was working full time and in a really physical job. So I was always tired and like trying to have a social life as well, which is really hard when you're trying to make comics.
Yeah.
And then, so all the Radical stuff is full script and very like structured. And like I'll make little mini comics. I don't know if I've got any around, and then I'll do like the how to make comics the Marvel way, where Stan said if there's more than one sentence per page, then there's too much stuff on the page, like it's too much going on.
Yeah.
So I'll structure it like that. And sometimes they even color code the pages if it's a fight scene or a stuff page or like a plot moving forward, and then tally them all up and see if there's a good division, and then move stuff around and take stuff out. And so like that, Radical's really structured. And then like Cobber and Seamanders from Earth is kind of like on the fly as I go, just writing it page per page as I do it.
Yeah. Well, the Sea Mandrels one is the mini comic, and so that was, you just focus, because that was your Patreon comic book, wasn't it? Because we'll get to that at the end too, where you've got a Patreon page for people to jump on and check out your stuff as well. So that there was one page like a week or something, like you just.
Yeah, I put up like a panel a week on Patreon.
Yeah.
But I try to draw a page a week, but.
Yeah, it's tricky, eh? Like trying to get a comic book out. Like, have you found yourself, like, getting, as you've gotten on a little bit more and you're a little bit more experienced with how you spend your time, have you got it a little bit more, like, your time structured, or you just do it whenever you can, man?
I've got more time to do it, but I think I've got like ADHD or whatever it's called. So I'm trying to do 10 things at once. So even when I was a kid, I had this idea that I could do like 4 quarterlies a year. Yeah. But it would take me, I didn't factor in that it took me like 4 years to make my first finished book. But I was like, oh, once I've done one, I can do. So I was writing all this stuff and just imagining my superhero universe, and
so you got like all these scripts still?
No, I've got some stuff.
Because the way you're talking is like you've got a full universe created here, man. Which is
I used to, yeah.
Yeah,
But
that's cool. Oh, yeah, that's a lot of work. It takes a lot of space in your mind too, man. Um, like for people that don't create things, because oh, dude, I don't know. I've got no space in my brain for everyday living, mate. You know what I mean? Like it's like I don't know. I can be driving down the street, man, and like I'm thinking stories and comic books, and someone's running by the river, and your brain's going off about like, oh, what if this happened and that happened. I don't know if you're the same, but I'm like that. I don't think I live on planet Earth, man. I think I live in Lee's world. So it's not a bad world, but it's not for everyone. But hey, like it's all right. I'm still here. But that so like with because like obviously like that I like talking about the creative side of things, man, because like everyone's got a different process. Like everyone I've spoken to, like some people like the Marvel way and synopsis, do the artwork, bring the script over later. Some people like the script and like it tight, and and then it's whatever. But you seem to be someone, from what you're telling me, that whatever that motivation is right there and then is exactly how it's going to come out. Yeah, like
yeah, a lot of stuff is I start running before I've got it all figured out. Like Final Dragon, that's when Sis was like, "Oh, have you got a story for the thing?" I'm like, "Nah." And then like a day later, I'm like, "Oh, I've got this idea for 10 issues of the thing," and just started going, and then try and figure out how to put it into
so you did
like
that
how
on
to
the fly,
structure.
man. You were doing that on the fly and
I
just
was doing
going.
the chunks, like the 8-page chunks, but they were more structured.
Yeah,
The actual bits were structured to the 8-page sections
yeah.
for the presents. But I
Did you
wasn't
find?
thinking.
Do you find that when you've been creating? Because the other thing is with you, mate, is you don't just do 24-page comic books. You do 8-page, like stories. You do 1-pages. You do a whole myriad. Like, do you think that I've found that getting a story on 1 page is damn tricky. You know what I mean?
The
Like, and
hardest
if you,
one, yeah.
oh man, and if you can do a good job on that to tell, like the start, middle, and finish, like the classic thing on 1 page, you're doing well. Like that's real hard. Um, have you found that doing a variety of different length and style stories has helped you as a creator, like dabbling in these
Yeah,
different things? Yeah,
there's
because I've
definitely helped like strengthen the muscle of the, like as you're saying, structuring a thing to 1 page. Like how do you like do that? And then also with like talking about that for process, like um for different things, I use different stories to focus on certain elements of like storytelling. Like the Final Dragon was all about movement and moving the
yep,
eye across the page.
yep,
And because it's a karate fighting story, there's lots of action, but trying to get the eye moving back and forwards across the page.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then to get kind of, you build that muscle up, and then it's like it's built in. It's like doing like boxing or whatever. Like once you've
yep.
got that, once
Got
you've
that
got
muscle
that
memory.
automatically, then you start like moving your head.
Yep,
And then when it comes time to, like, say the doing the comic book is the actual, when you're in the ring, you're not thinking about it as much. It's like it's
yeah, yeah,
coming out, and so it comes easier. Like the more reps you do, like
yeah,
building up the muscles.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah. No, that's a cool way of looking at it.
I found that as my style gets stronger, like what I'm seeing in my head already looks closer to what my hand can make.
Yep,
So I don't hate my art as much as, like, say a couple of years ago when I was really like fighting my hand to like draw it, because I was seeing someone else's art,
yep.
which my hand couldn't do because I hadn't practiced as much.
So is that because you just hadn't found Ed at that stage when you were first doing things?
think so.
Absent-minded. I completely get that. Hyper-focus can be amazing when you're in that zone. Absolutely. It's because I think, like, for yourself, like, I want to touch on, like, a cool thing you just said then, and I hadn't heard it articulated like this. Like, you were seeing someone else's artwork in your mind when you were starting. So that means you were trying to
trying to draw like Jim Lee or Eric Larson, or like I
do
could
that.
see a combination.
And you were
But then
sort of struggling a bit with it. You weren't enjoying,
because it doesn't look like it never looked like what my head was seeing.
Yeah.
Like my hand wasn't doing what my head was seeing. But as they got more in sync, and as my style coalesced into what it is now, like I'm starting to see like the stuff in my head is like how I would draw it.
Yeah. So that means your language and yourself, your authentic self, is coming through in your artwork now. Like, you're no longer seeing anyone else's art styles. You're seeing Ed Kearsley, like rocking out, not just in your mind, but your hand, like you're funneling. You're coming out and you're putting it on the page. Like, do you ever find, like, because it's weird. I like talking to you about this, Ed, because I've never really thought about how I do it. So I'm sort of trying to, like, you've got me thinking on a different sort of focus now. Have you?
But you've got a very strong style, so you must be like, and it doesn't really look like anything else. So you must be drawing from a certain place, or you're just trying to survive page by page.
It's survival, mate. Might be, might be one of those things for me, because like I've said before, like, creativity and drawing and stuff has been, like, look, realistically, for me, drawing has been the only constant or consistent thing in my life, and I mean that through every aspect. Like, even when I was a little kid, didn't know who I was or what I was. I would draw. I wasn't particularly vocal. I was never someone that expressed my feelings, like a lot, even as a small kid. So I used to spend a lot of time to myself, and then I guess my voice was my artwork. So my mother used to always say if I wasn't drawing, there was something wrong. She could tell what sort of mood I was in by, like, if I was using colors, or, if I was black and white, that sort of thing. So I guess I've always been like that. So I don't really know where it comes from. I think, much like yourself, I understand where, when I was in those teenage, early 20s, I was definitely seeing. I mean, I've got drawing. I hoard everything, so I can sort of go back to, like, the 80s and 90s, and God, man, like, I've got my kids' comic books that I made, like in grade 1 and 2, and that's still, and I can see the things that influenced me then. But I was, like, very heavily, like, Norm Brayfogle, Mark Silvestri. I loved Mark Silvestri. I find, like, you were talking about movement and stuff like that. I found his artwork was just, it was awesome. McFarlane, obviously, at our age, when we were younger, maybe he isn't quite as held in high regard now. I don't know. I haven't seen any of his artwork for a long time, but at the time of Spider-Man and stuff, you know what I mean? It was, whoa, I've never seen anything like this. And then I guess, so I was imitating those dudes for sure, and then, I don't know, just slowly over time, man, I think much like yourself, I just sort of, I guess you just sort of realize you got something to say, mate, like, what your focus is on. I think that comes with genres too, Ed, because you're like, I mean, I don't want to pigeonhole you, bud, but, like, the stuff I've read is, like, it's varied, it's funny, but it's very action orientated, and there's lots of cool, like, when you said learning to draw the Marvel way, I can see that by the big stances, and you know what I mean, like, and I can see exactly what you're talking about with your stuff. But man, like I can pick an Ed Kearsley piece of artwork from a mile away. Ed, I very proudly have an original of yours sitting over next to my drawing desk of Rosie framed, and I look at that pretty much every day, man. And it's an Ed Kearsley drawing of Rosie. There's no doubt about that. There's no one does anything, like that, man. So like that's always the best. I think that's the best compliment to give someone who's drawing and creative, man. You've sort of found your thing, man, and that's cool as. I like with now I reckon another thing that would have really inspired you as a kid, like, and it did for me too, was like Image. Because that would have been a period of time where Image was dropping and Youngblood and Spawn and stuff. So how did you feel about that period of comic books, man?
But originally, I didn't like that sort of stuff as much because, like, in the early 90s, I really got into the Justice League International run with the Keith Giffen and James DeMatteis and all the artists like in that. So that was funny superheroes, and that the great artists that had like Kevin Maguire and like I think the first couple that I got were drawn by Adam Hughes which are just really good like artwork and fun superhero stories.
Yeah. And was
so,
that your first superhero team?
That was like that's the first superhero comic that I really latched onto and would go to the comic shop and get the back issues and like save up my lunch money. I wasn't buying off the stand anymore. I was saving up for back issues from the comic shop to fill the run out.
Yeah.
And then they stopped that so they could lead into the death of Superman because they wanted to put Superman back into the Justice League, and that creative team wasn't allowed to have Superman in it.
Yep.
Because they told they dirty him up because it was too silly.
Yeah. Did you the death of Superman? That's cool that we're talking about this because I reckon that was also a pivotal moment in comic books, man. Because I remember. Do you remember it like being there were news segments on the news, man? Of like,
two kids from my school wagged so they could go stand in line and buy it.
Yeah, it was crazy, man. They were like people that had never read a comic book in their life, man. Like just elbowing. I got Radical 1 from the ComX shop. So funny. Good on you, P&P Widgies. That's what we like to see. A ComX shop supporter and an Ed Kearsley fan. Go and buy issue 2 and 3 when you get a chance, mate, because they're just as good. And they were like, man, it was almost like judges and like all walks of life, dudes with the wigs and elbowing school kids out of the way, like when the roller doors of the news agents would turn up to get like the death of Superman and stuff like that. It was wild, man, back then. And I remember one news agent's that there was like a young, just trying to think, probably youngish, I guess, looking back now, maybe 20-year-old lady, like just, man, boxes of these like Death of Superman comic books, just sticking them on the shelf, man. People grabbing them out of boxes and stuff. And I remember being a school kid at the time, going like, "What's going on here?" I didn't get it. I just thought comics were a bit of a niche thing, But yeah, that was a zeitgeist moment, like where comics sort of exploded. And then do you remember all those cool like Superman spin-offs? God, I haven't thought about this for a long time. There was like the Cyborg Superman.
That was the reign of the Superman when it came.
Yeah. Was that what it was?
Bring Superman back after.
Yeah.
I think the real revolution that happened in the 90s, which like started in the late 80s, was when like Liefeld and McFarlane and Jim Lee, and then Silvestri and like Wealth Petrosio, but they started drawing stuff different than how Marvel had been doing it for the past 20 odd years.
Yeah.
They kind of solidified a style in the 60s, and it didn't change that much. It changed a bit in the 80s. There's some stuff going on, But those guys came in like the mid 80s, and then by the late 80s, they were drawing stuff that didn't look like anything it ever looked like before.
Yeah.
And that's what latched onto the kids' brains. That's why people talk about Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man and Jim Lee's X-Men and stuff, and Eric Larson on Spider-Man as well, and all that stuff. And that was the real thing. And that's what started like selling, like the speculator boom started from there, because they're making, oh, they've got this new thing out. They're starting a new book. And they sold 1 million copies of like Spider-Man 1, and then X-Force sold 1 million copies. And then the adjectiveless X-Men sold 1 million, say it sold 8 million copies because it had 4 covers, like, or whatever, 8 covers.
Yeah.
No, so that started the speculator boom. But that's what stuck with us, like people like our generation of comic book readers, and what like it's kind of derided now. Like it was silly. It was just, oh, it's just about the art, but it was something new. There was shit, and it wasn't advertised anywhere. We found it. You had to go to the comic shop and like, who's this Todd? Why does this comic book look so crazy?
Yeah.
It's because Todd McFarlane's just going nuts on it.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
And that was the thing that made it.
It was, man. It was. And then you got like on the DC side of things too. I remember like Batman, and that started introducing like Klaus Janson, and that was starting to like come off inking and doing drawing and doing Batman comic books, and they were wild, man. And what was it? The Dark Knight, I think, was the next comic book spin-off or something of Batman, and they were like really dark. You know, I remember
the Dark Knight or something.
Yeah, something like that. Man, I remember reading one of the stories. I think it was called Totem, and oh, dude, like I was like, man, 17, 18 reading this, and I was like, man, I ain't never read anything like this before. Is this Batman? You know, because it's like up until that point, you know, like Batman was cool, you know, like, but this was like a lot different, you know, and far more mature, and that's why I still, when I'm like talking to people in the real world and stuff like that, you know, which sometimes I have to go out into, you know, like even though it scares me, you know, like you still got to do it, man. And you know, you just get talking to people, and like I don't talk about it a lot, but you know, like you know, people will be like, oh, what have you been doing? And like, you know, I've just been drawing. Oh, what do you draw? Oh, I just draw comic book pages and stuff like that. Oh, what do you draw? Like, you know, like, and they always like come up with their frame of reference, and it's really funny to get like the first frame of reference from people, because you can straight up tell their experience with like where comic books are, you know what I mean, depending on an age and what they picked up. Some people automatically go for Archie, some people go for, you know, like Peanuts, you know, like they do, you know, like that, and I'm like, no, not really that sort of stuff, more like you know, like, and I always just say the whole, like, more like, you know, Spider-Man, you know, darker comics like that. I like the movie, you know. The weird references, how people, you know, like relate to things now, man. It's like, yeah, okay, let's just roll with that. And I'm going by. And, you know, like, oh, is that my phone ringing? You know, like, but anyway, it's just my interactions with people. I've just given you, you know, like that there. So you all know what I'm like if you meet me in public. Radical T-shirts rock. Time to check them out. Yeah. Oh, look at that. There's Kerry wearing Shane wearing a Radical T-shirt. Look at that. Rocking. All right. Because where now you are a huge advocate of Australian comic books, and I guess I'm leading up to, because you are, man, like you got a huge back catalogue of Australian comic books. Like, God, we can talk about Bug and Stump issue 1, like you and I have done it, you know, in after shows of like drink and draws and stuff before, and you're like, yeah, this one and this one and this one. It's like,
this one.
There you go. There's a classic, Mark Sexton. You know what I mean? And his mate. I dare not say his last name because I'll probably butcher it. I do apologize.
John Petropoulos.
There we go. All right. So when did you start realizing that amongst all of the image and this crazy artwork and it's catching your eyes and you're thinking to yourself like, man, this isn't like what I read when I was a kid, you know what I mean? Like what was when did you start, I guess, gravitating towards Australian comic books, man? Like at what point, what grabbed you?
I think the first one would have been Bug and Stump.
Yep.
Is like one of the, it's around like 94.
Mm.
That just at the newsagents there was an Australian comic book. So just grabbed that and looked at it, and because it's in black and white too, because you like all the corporate superhero stuff's in full 4-color glory.
Yeah.
And then there's this black and white book, and it's like, oh yeah, well I draw in black and white because I don't know how to do coloring. There was no color process, like you couldn't do it on your computer.
Yep.
At the time, and you didn't have access to the coloring houses for the color separations and all that.
Yep.
Crazy stuff that they used back then. So yeah, there was a big thing to see that. Bug and Stump and Platinum Grit were like the like the real big ones.
What was your feelings as a young Ed? Like, you know, you've just come out of school, your art teachers are like, you know, what do you want to, you know, you're 14 years old and you got to know what you want to do for the rest of your life. And, you know, you say, hey, I want to do comic books. And they say, no, you don't. You know what I mean? That's crap. And, you know, so they'd stick you in a pet shop and, you know, like, and your dream's still gurgling. You just printed your first comic book. You're buzzing off that. You're drawing things. You're feeling proud. You know, like your creative process is like, you know, bubbling away there and stuff, man. And then you're reading this, you know, American comic books. You're starting to get a vibe and feel for things, and then you find Bug and Stump and Platinum Grit. What was your feelings as a young Australian kid seeing Australian comics on the newsagents next to what you were, you know, used to seeing? How did you feel about that?
It's hard to remember, but I suppose it would have been like that it's possible. Like there's a chance, because like my whole thing was I got to put my comic book out, like this one, and it's gonna Marvel and DC. Like I was 19 or whatever, 18 when I was drawing it, so it's not good by any measure. There's a Concresaurus.
But it lives, Ed. It didn't, mate. And that's the main thing. Hey,
hey Ryan. So because I'm a kid that doesn't know anything, my idea was that I put this out, and then I'm immediately going to get hired by Marvel and DC to like write or draw or something. And then it sold like 2 copies.
Where did you sell it? Like when you did Battle Tide, where did you sell that? You just like to your mates or like comic shops?
Yeah, to comic shops and to like the little punk shops and stuff that had zing racks.
Yeah.
Put it up there.
And you just walked in off the street like, hey man, I've done this comic book. You want to chuck it on the shelf? And that's cool, man. Like,
and I found out you needed a receipt book for sales. It was all sale and return.
Yeah.
But yeah,
God, man, you've like, you know, I love hearing these stories of like people that walk the beat, you know, like, you know, selling things and learning on the fly and the job and all that, man. Like, man, you're dedicated. I like that, Ed. Like, that's cool as, man. You know, like it's and the other gentleman that just said g'day, then Ryan Valla. It is awesome, Nick, mate. Ryan Valla is another one, like much like yourself, mate, who even though, you know, a couple of states separate you, you know, it's funny the energy and the commitment that people get, you know, to do something, man, and they get it done. Because like I admire you for that. I admire Ryan for the hands-on work as well, because even though I always wanted to do comic books, man, I never got my first one done until Battle for Bustle issue 1, man. Ed knows every punk in Melbourne. My God, Ed, you must know half of the city, mate. You know,
just
so,
the old ones.
Just the old ones. I didn't think they're still young ones, are they, mate?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Punk's good, man. Punk's energy. I love punk. You know, like it's some good rock and stuff. Yeah, but like just the hands-on work, man, to get it done and the drive, man, it's amazing.
As you were like talking about before, what it was like to see Bug and Stump in the shops is when I went to the comic shop, and then there was this book that it doesn't have the proper cover, but the Clans by Concresaurus, and that was in the A4 size printed one. This is the reprint that he's done, but this came out, and this was like 96, and I would just finished. No, I wasn't even finished with Battle Tide #1. Had a couple pages left, and I had no idea how I was gonna get it printed. So the cons about my age too, but his stuff was a lot more advanced, like for his first book. But just seeing that on the shelves at an alternate world, so it was at the counter, because I think he used to work there as well, so he had an in with the boss to get his booking. And I was like, oh man, I could do mine like this, and it had his address, and I wrote him a letter and said, hey man, I've got my book. Like, how do you do the pagination? Like how do you make it go from page to page when it's printed? Because they're like page 1 is on the back of like page 24, and like page 2's on that, and then how do you work that shit out? And so he wrote me a letter, and we started talking on the phone, and he talked me through it. How did you print that first one?
How did you print the first one, Ed?
So I got I drew it all on A3 because I knew you did it like double size from like reading Wizards and stuff. Then I got them reduced to A4 and then stuck them on A3 pages in the order that they go in, and then got them double-sided copied. So then I had like a mock-up of the book, and then just took that to a photocopier's and got I think I got 20 copies maybe, or 60 copies or something. No, I think it was 20 copies, and it cost $60.
Wow.
And and I can't remember. I don't think they folded and stapled them either. They just printed them. So I had to get the stapler, because I didn't have a long arm stapler. So to eject the staple, put some ink on it, put the staple onto the page so where the dots are, and then get a compass and put the holes through, and then hand bend all the staples as well, and then fold it.
Oh man, things you do for love. See, that's unreal. You know, it's that would have made you feel good though. You know, like seeing that. Like, man, I worked. I worked briefly in a printing shop many years ago before I just never went back after lunch one day. That's a very short story. That's about all I've got to add on that. But yeah, I used to see people for the period that I was there. They would come in with much like yourself and want to print a book or flyers. Particularly at the time, I remember like churches and organizations and that, you know, they do their flyers and the things that you get handed out at fetes and things like that. And these grumpy printers would be like, you know, like, we got to do this for, you know, like 100 copies and all that. And I remember like people were paying like a hell of a lot of money for these things, man. But I reckon I love hearing these stories, dude, because like I wish one of the things that like I regret is that I never went through this. I sort of used to at school, but that's when I was making bootleg copies of comic books, man. You know what I mean? So it was like sort of same but different, I guess. But just the effort you went to, and I also love to. I want to bring it back to the like the modern period, because everyone knows like, hello, how are you, Naughtiest Art? Like everyone knows like I love the comic book community and what the live streams and stuff provide, and like Ed loves them as well. So there's two advocates here. But from listening to Ed's story tonight, like just now, about letters and phone calls and talking to people about how did you do this, how did you do that, like times certainly have changed, man. Hey, like where we can be sitting here, like far north Queensland and you're in Melbourne, you know what I mean? Like, and we're talking about, like how you did things and, like reminiscing about stuff. Yeah, those meeting people and stuff, like it's awesome how times have changed but things are all different. Everything changes. That's the constant, isn't it? So it's really cool. But I enjoyed it immensely. Listen to all this stuff. Now, Ed, when you sold, like, one question though, and then I'll get onto that one. What would it be like, you reckon, selling 1 million copies of your comic book, mate? Like, I mean, that number blows my mind. Do you know what I mean? Like, wow. Imagine waking up one morning and someone's on the phone going like, mate, you just sold 1 million copies of your comic book. You'd be like, get out of here, mate. Pull the other one, like, I don't know. I don't think I'd believe it, but, that'd be a trip out. But with Radical, like you did that yourself under your own print house at that stage. And what were your plans with Radical once you got that up and running, man? Because that's like nice paper. It's not, like it's, I think you got, is it George Vega from memory? Is that the artist? Pin-ups and stuff, and he's doing like the new comic, like the newer issues of it now. You had Darren Close get involved with you on one of the issues and that as well. So you're building up some good steam there. Like, what were you, when you were putting that together? Because that's not a cheap exercise for an independent person, like to do. Like, what were you planning on doing with that? And had you put that together and had those plans in place before you discovered the whole ComX world and community and stuff, man?
Yeah, that was before. So I had a period where I wasn't making comic books, and I'm not really good with dates and times and like what year it was, but there was a period. It must have been like a couple of years where I was just more mucking around and like doing a few ideas, but never finishing anything.
Yeah.
And doing just other stuff, and I wasn't very happy. So I made a concerted effort to finish a script, and then draw it, and then that was Radical 1. And so the whole plan with Radical 1 was to do the first 3 issues to get the origin arc up, and then have other people draw it, and then keep the story going, and then just do the writing to focus on other stuff.
Yeah, and that's where you've veered off to now with George and stuff like that, coming in with like Radical, the next series, when it starts rolling through. Because once Radical started, like I'm just trying to piece it together too. I guess Radical was out, and then ComX started, I guess started coming together with the calendar and stuff. I guess that's probably the first place where I guess a lot of us became aware of each other, like seeing each other's artwork in that calendar, which, I mean, there's a lot of, I can only talk for like us, I guess, when we started and came together, like with ComX and that. Radical issue 1 was a bit of a life changer. Robbie Kearsley. Yeah, because if you don't care about quality, I can draw Radical. There you go. Scissors up, chucking his hands up, mate,
Good.
Because there you go, Shane. You got a gig, man.
Just get yourself a gig, buddy.
Like, I'm just trying to think, like, because we put us all on, for us as like the genesis of ComX with Shane and Kerry and like the first crew of that calendar and the people, like, man, that was like really pivotal, like, in hindsight for, well, a lot of us really, to like, like get the belief, like building and mushrooming, I guess, to, then came Presents, and then came Final Dragon, and, like, you've got with Final Dragon, you're putting that together in, I guess, a trade paperback type form with new pages, which we can get into a bit, but that came out, and then from, the same pages sprung, like Peter Wilson's Foes, which has just recently, like been released with a Kickstarter, and like a whole swag of people, man, like, Isaac George, Spedsy, like with Spedsy's, Frederick Cheloney, believe it or not, the Turtle, like spawned Rosie, mate. You know what I mean? Like Ringer, like, so there's its own, like web sort of like going across the place, which is really cool. But I guess what I'm like with ComX Presents, and then doing the drink and draws and us all getting to talk. So like this is how it's evolved from, I guess I'm getting to, from telephones and letters, snail mail and stuff like that, to being able to have these moments. It's like you have gone on, man, to have 2 of your own live streams now. So not only are you producing comic books, you got a Patreon, you've been in successful Kickstarters with ComX, you're putting together a trade paperback, like of Final Dragon, which another one, if like I'm a fan of Final Dragon, because Final Dragon's got a really wicked 70s color scheme. If Ed wasn't so cool, ComX would be dropped years ago. Come on, man, Ed's cool. No one's dropping ComX, but Ed can stay cool because he is cool. That's what's cool about him. He's just cool. He's listening to me carry on. So Ed hosts the amazing Jam comic show, Let's Make a Comic Book, on Thursday night on this channel, coming back soon with Blank and that. You and Sis are doing your, which I still got to finish inking a panel for you there too. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah. It's subliminally reminding me there. I better find that, or I'll be getting in trouble, dirty emails. And you've got your recent reads that's on Friday nights too, man. So like you're growing, man. Like as a creator and a content producer. Like how do you feel about that? Like was that something while you're doing comic books you've always wanted to do as well? Like have a punt. Nick May Ed used to do heaps of live drawing streams. You did too, your own ones at home. That's right. You used to stream them. So where did the love of the live content come from, man? Because it certainly seems like you're just booming now. So where did that all just stay?
It comes from Sis saying, "Have you got an idea for a show?" And I say no, and then a couple of days later, go, "Oh, what about this?" It's it's the same place where whenever you hear someone say like, well, Superman's dumb because he can do anything, so you can't write a story about Superman. And I'm like, yeah, it's probably true. And oh no, you could do this. Superman's not dumb. You're dumb because you can't think of anything. I just thought of 10 things you could do with Superman that would be rad.
Yeah.
And like people, they say like, oh, I've got this in my back pocket. I've had this Batman story for years. And I'm like, I don't have a Batman story. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, I could do that with Batman. Like if someone asks me questions like, oh, how would you do this? It's like, no idea. And then 10 minutes later, it's like, oh, here's 10 ideas. Like, here's how you could do that stuff. So that's just where that stuff comes from.
It sounds like your mind's pretty active, dude. You know what I mean? Like being able to come up with stories that quick on the spot. Like that's a talent. Like,
well, it's not so much on the spot. It's just having it cook and just the little thing, just the little guys just snoring into my brain, and then like it starts
to picture that a little bit more of that, because this is more of your creative process, and I love this sort of stuff. When the idea, as you said, is cooking. Now, is that necessarily if I was to say, Ed, give me a Batman comic, or a story, you've been cooking on Batman for some time, or have you got a story idea that's cooking that if I said, give me a Batman story, you can go, oh, that idea that I've got would, like translate to an amazing Batman comic? How does your mind work there, man?
So it would be like first I'd say, no, I've got nothing. And then I'd go away and just do my normal day. And then like I'd just be thinking in the back of my mind, I'd be thinking about Batman. So it would come as a new Batman story. And then like there's getting better at it now as I get older of like letting ideas go.
Yeah.
Because there's some ideas like it's like my Battle Team Alpha, which is the redoing of this, because I only did 2 issues of this back in the day.
Yep.
So I really want to get that story out, like whatever that story is. It's changed so much over the past 20 odd years.
Yeah.
But so that's still there. So once it's on the paper, like once it's done, it's gone. It's like
you can let it go.
Yeah, it's that, for want of a better word, it's like taking a poop. Like it's the relief.
It's out. Relief, like, it's I can understand that, because the other thing is too, like what you just said there is to have an idea in your head for 20 years, because absence-minded, as someone with ADD, I feel this on a molecular level. Thank you, Ed, for articulating it. There you go. That's cool as, like, I'm sure Ed's very glad he could help you, absence-minded. I'm glad Ed could help you. So thank you for the lovely comment. Like, you've got stories in your mind for a long time. Like you were saying, like with Battle Tide, you're changing it now to Battle Team Alpha, and the story's not the same as how you're trying to translate it now, because me with Battle for Bustle, God, that's been in my head for like over 25 years. And I found that amongst other things, one of the difficult, after having 2.5, 3 years off Battle for Bustle to go through other things in my life, when I came back to it, the foundation of the story is there. So the platform, what you want to build on. But I found that the initial idea formulation was a little dated, I guess. You know what I mean? Like, and I had to bring in some aspects of how I was now, like into the moment, and life and things that have affected me, like, because I think there's something you can't really tell a story from a 20-year-old's perspective when you're our age. You know what I mean? You got to add a little bit of your own taste and vibe and feel to it. Have you found that difficult while doing Battle Team Alpha at the moment, with the certain changes and adding a bit more of like middle-aged Ed, like to the story, as opposed to 20-year-old Ed?
Well, that sort of thing is I suppose with Battle Team Alpha, it's so specifically a 90s comic, is I'm trying to get that 90s energy into it.
Yeah.
So it's just all action fighting. But I also wanted to, with the new one, it's what I could try. I've been trying to figure out for the last couple of years, especially since starting Final Dragon, is have the excess and the bombast of 90s era comics with kind of a shooter era 80s Marvel aesthetic with the solid storytelling.
Yeah.
And so it's like the new ones, like it's more like sophisticated in what it is than what the actual 90s ones were, because you might not be able to tell, but I'm a more sophisticated storyteller now than what I was, because of it's because of what I was saying before. It's the reps. Like I've done
Yep.
I put the work in and studied stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, man, you're an avid reader. Don't mention the '90s. you're you're an avid reader. I know that. You're doing lots of artwork. I see that. You're productive as all hell on the comic book front because like you're doing minis, you're doing sea mandrills, you got your Patreon page, like you got blank, so you're in the live stream, so you're around it, like you're living it, you're thinking it, it's in your mind, like you're well, you're in the pool, man. Do you know what I mean? Like things are starting to sink in, well, not sink in, but soak in, I guess, like because when you're with like-minded people, you start thinking out, like outside yourself too, and you're definitely, man, like um, I totally see the improvement in what you're getting to because like what I was mentioning before is, and we didn't touch, like you mentioned back in the '90s, it was difficult to get color, palettes and all that sorted out, and I touched on it before a comment. I'll come back to it. Final Dragon, I loved because it had a real, and you did it deliberately. So this indicates to me that your intention is to try things, and I like that. I like the fact that you do give things a go, man. You know what I mean? And this is the Ed Kearsley, the voice that I see coming through, and your coloring process in Final Dragon had that beautiful, I guess, 60s, 70s vibe to it where you could see, like the print dots and, like it had a really, oh man, modern comics are like a brand new set of jeans. This one, like had, like you could see the creases and the stitches on, Johnny's jeans and stuff. Like, oh yeah, this is what you
That,
worked off, is it?
it's got the Marvel color guide in it,
Yeah, yeah,
and in a weird roundabout way of Small World is I got this from Alternate Worlds that's in Bayswater now,
yeah.
and Spedsy sold me this comic.
Get out of here. Really?
Yeah. So, but what I did was I took samples of that and then made it into little, I think they're called materials on the drawing program.
Yeah.
And then that filled up the gaps of the bits that I was drawing on. And because a lot of those are faded because it's old comics, I went through every comic book that I had of that age and looked for that color and then scanned all these pages and then took the little samples to try and find a better version of it. But now there's a program that does it, and it does it in the layers like how it would do it. It looks a lot better. So that's why I'm going to recolor it using the new thing that someone's figured out to make the thing. But that's how I did that one, which it took a long time to scan it all and then make this color guide again.
Dude, I know,
with better
man.
samples.
I look forward to seeing the new colors, but like I love those old colors. And how did you know? Did you know Spedsy at the time? Like,
no, he was just a weird tall guy at the comic shop.
He's just a weird tall guy that used to work at the comic book shop. Yeah. See, I didn't have any weird tall guys that worked at my comic book shop. I had Robbie. Those colors took forever. Yeah. But the beautiful thing there, Robbie, is like again what we were talking about, the meticulous nature of Ed wanting to get something done. So just put his mind to it and did it. Like, and if it took a long time, you didn't care, did you, Ed? You know what I mean? You wanted to do it. That's what I mean. You've done everything from the ground up. You've tried everything, man. So you're like fully across the board. But yeah, I didn't have a weird tall dude at my comic shop, man. I had a very nice Zimbabwean lady, believe it or not, and her name was Carol, and man, she was a champion. She had like that crow poster that's up there. I used to go in there every Wednesday and buy my comic books, and went in there for many years because she was a little book exchange that sold comic books out of a box, man. No, Spedsy hasn't changed, still a big tall weird fella. And and yeah, got to know her then. Then she built a back room because comics became more popular, and then she got into manga and anime and all that. And like you see this business grow. But I think I went from like 13 man through to like nearly 30. Like buying comics from Carol, and one day she was selling the comic book shop. She was retiring, and the husband, they were going off to do their things and travel as you do. Wherever they may be or wherever they may roam, as Metallica would say. And I saw that on your playlist the other day, Ed. That's Metallica. So that's why I threw that out there for you, mate. Like, just to let you know, I do occasionally pop up and have a look. But yeah, man, just because she knew I was such a huge Crow fan, man, she found that as a promo for in the comic book shop from like when he did Dead Time and all that in the late 90s, and she'd held on to it for years and never told me, and like just said like, here you go, thank you. And I was like, wow, so. No tall weird guys for me. There you go. I don't think I've ever told anyone that story, Ed. So thank you for taking me back to that memory, because she was a really nice lady, and made a huge impact on my life. Actually, I spent a lot of money there, so she's probably that's probably why she was nice. But getting back to like with you crossing all levels of so colouring. Your minis, you're printing, battle tides, you're printing you black and white, you're coming up with ideas, you disappeared for a little while to be social and stuff like that, as you should be, because comics and creativity and this and such do require a lot of sacrifice. That's why I have such admiration for people that continue on with it, because unfortunately there are a lot of people I've come across that don't last long, because it does take a lot. And sometimes I think it surprises people how difficult it is. So it takes an immense amount of drive. And you're obviously showing that, Ed, today. Like, so with the Final Dragon trade paperback, you were talking about you recoloring it. So are you in the middle of recoloring it yet? Have you begun that work and the extra page?
I've started drawing the extra pages.
Yeah. And how many extra pages can be expected, man? Not sure yet?
I think it's 6 new ones, which is like a little prologue, and then goes in. Because if you remember the first issue of Presents, like it starts in the middle of a fight.
Yeah, I do remember.
So yeah, and so I've got to change up a bit of because I was kind of writing and drawing it on the fly. I'm going to change I've got to rewrite the script, which I think I've already done.
Yep.
But that didn't take too long.
And you got
just to make it make sense to go into the new bit that's coming in, and so you to re-letter it and then re-color it.
So you're really going back to scratch on it, man. Like you're sort of like, are you redoing any panels, like along the comic, or are you leaving the original art as is, bringing them together, 6 new pages to tie it all in and rope it up, new lettering, new colors, like real, like vivid stuff. Man, that's cool. Like that's
it'll
awesome.
be different. It's like the same story because it's the same drawings, but the text will be a little bit different flavor than the.
And have you given a lot of? I'm sure that you have meticulously thought of the text that you'll be using too with the lettering. It's to suit it, because I'm actually just thinking about Johnny there, actually, man, because I'm looking up at one of the photocopies up on my wall that I usually pin up there, and Johnny was the first drawing of the very first drink and draw, wasn't it? Is my memory?
The main character is Bobby, and Johnny's
Bobby.
Johnny's the big brother that dies.
Yeah. Because
the first drink and draw was Final Dragon.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Like, far out. Did you see the other day? It's up to, we're talking about the first one, and the new episode is 111. Like, that blows my mind. It's wow, man. Yeah, I like talking to people who are on that show, when I get a chance, because do you remember how? And this is what I mean. Is like Dave Dye, Ed hand letters most of his comics. Do you, Ed? I didn't realise that, mate.
Not so much now, because there's so many good like computer fonts, but there's some stuff like the Sea Mountains from Earth. I use a computer font and then I go over it by hand.
Yeah.
So it looks different. And I'm just trying to. Yeah, so that's Cobber. That's a Patreon one. This is like a Melbourne crime drama. If you remember the show Good Guys, Bad Guys from the 90s.
Yeah, vaguely, yeah.
It's like my version of that, but it's set in the 80s. So it's kind of
cool.
Based on that. But yeah, I haven't done as much hand lettering because it's it doesn't look as good as the computer one, but I'm very particular about the word bubble placement.
Yep. Oh man, it's integral. Like that's I'm much the same as you, man. I find if it's correctly placed and good lettering, good word bubbles should not detract from the story. It should just,
you shouldn't notice it. Yeah,
it just should
and
flow.
it also needs, yeah, because the way that like focused on the flow of the action and the characters on the page, the word bubbles also have to drag your eye across and they have to complement where the stuff's going as well.
Yeah.
So
do you actually, here's one then while we're talking. When you're doing your layouts and stuff and you're on the fly, are you consciously thinking of the shape of your paneling and your choreography and stuff like that to put the word bubbles in? Like, or do you just draw and then go, like I'll have to work the word bubbles in around?
I think work them in after, so that can be kind of a harder part, which I think that's one of the things I need to work on is making the word bubble part of the drawing.
Yeah, like a bit more manga-esque sort of thing. Is that what you're saying there? Yeah, like I get that.
It's just being mindful of stuff. There's like the difference between let's say a new cartoonist and someone like me who's drawn a couple of comics is there's a billion things you've got to be thinking of just to draw a page, just to have it work.
Yeah, man.
And the more you do stuff, the more you learn. Like, and the more like reps you do, the more subconsciously you're just doing stuff.
Yeah.
The less mistakes you make. So it's you got to be so mindful of so much just stuff. There's all these rules, and like, am I going to break the rule? Am I going to swap something around for effect? And it just like in superhero comics, having but if it's like two talking heads, having the hero go left to right, so he's going forwards when he's talking, having the villain go right to left, so he's stopping.
Yep.
Like it makes it's subconscious stuff, but you feel it when you're reading it. Makes the villain intimidating and the heroes going towards them.
Yeah. No, I love like two things, because Dave Dye does beautiful hand lettering. When he like does his hand lettering, I know he uses both sides, and I know he appreciates hand lettering because I've seen and I've talked to him about his little rulers that he's got, and he's shown me some tricks too and stuff over the time. Hand lettering is something that I certainly am scared to do. I know my mate Ryan Vella does a lot of hand lettering, and he's got cool hand lettering because it suits everything with him. I don't know so much that I'm aware of the rules, Ed, in terms of like the lettering and stuff, and like you hear different things of like you got to have the page turn, you got to do this, you got to do that, and I like the flow of the lettering and things, I think when I'm like, because I have scripts that are synopsis, scripts written in pages. I do weird scripts, man. They change all the time. Some issues are scripts before I start. Some are notes. Some are sketches. You know, the splash pages that build around. You know, the paneling and stuff. Like, I don't have a particular process, man. Like, I just work with what I'm doing for the thing I'm working on. Which sometimes I don't know how I do it. But, you know, that's probably why I live in Leigh's world. But I tend to find myself that while I have a script that's somewhere, I know what I want to put in the artwork, and I don't know, it's a strange process, man. I have a hard time articulating. That's why I like getting people's ideas of it. I just sort of do it, man. And sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes it does. You know what I mean? Like, that's the thrill, I guess. Like, I'd be a shocking teacher. If someone sent me to the library to say, teach these children how to do comic books, I'd just say, man, just do your thing. Just do it, mate. You know what I mean? Don't worry about the rules. Just have fun, and we'll worry about it all later on. Just get it out, man. Shake out those sillies and just do it. You know, like, that's what it's all about. You know, like, just enjoy it. So I maybe for me, from the perspective of, I don't so much, I appreciate the rules and the rights and the wrongs, and I get that there's those things, but I don't so much worry about it. I guess coming back to punk, you know, like music, I sort of feel the same way about comics, man. Punk's all about energy and, you know, like, simple stories, and, you know, like, even though they're complicated, you know, like in creation, you know, like, it's a flow, it's a vibe, it's a feel, and I like that, man. You know, like, as opposed to scientifically proven, you know, like, it must do this, and if you don't do this on the third page, or you don't have that page turner, then, you know, you have done it incorrectly, and all that. You know, like, just have fun, mate. You know, like, just do your comics and enjoy. But each to their own. This is just my opinion. It doesn't have to be everyone else's. If everyone had the same opinion in the world, it'd be a boring place. So just, you know, do what you got to do, man. Better out than in. But getting back to like what we were saying, like what I was talking about with the first live stream is like when you think about it, Ed, like, you know, because you're here too, and you're a fellow ComX like live streamer. It's like you go back to that show, and there were 8 of us that had absolutely no idea what, like, none of us had ever done a live stream before. Like, we're all just heads down drawing and stuff, you know, and barely anyone like talking. We didn't know about, you can't have dead air, or, you know, like, you can't do any of that, you know, like, because not only like the comic book rules, but there's things you got to think about in live streaming, I guess, too, man. So, you know, like, you don't want dead air. Even if you just talk jive, you got to keep it rolling, you know what I mean? Like, because people aren't just watching, people are listening while they're doing things. So, you know, you got to read the comments to people. Like, there's lots of things to think about as well. That's just, you know, a little bit of it. But then you had like Spedsy step up that moment, you know, go, oh, I better do some, you know, keep it going. And then he started it rolling, and, like, you know, like, he's, you know, like I guess apart from his comic book work now, you know, like, he's well known for, you know, like, his involvement with Friday Night Drink and Draw, and the Sis, who's been there, you know, like, since day one doing Friday Night Drink and Draws. And then you had Peter Wilson, who was with us from Foes, like, and he's done his Sunday Spotlight, you know what I mean, like, shows in the past and stuff, you know. And then there was me that was there, and there's Chinwag that come from that, and then there was you know what I mean, there and doing things, and there's the Draw a Comic Book, and there's the recent reads, you know, that you've gotten into. So it's really, it's a funny old world when, like, yeah, everything's just so connected, man. You know, like, how everyone's just, you know, and, you know, even the Spedsy selling you that comic book that you coloured, you know, like, just, it's such a weird thing, you know, like.
And then he's in the book, that the story that I was making using that material for.
Yeah.
Like, he was in that book with me. Like,
yeah, it's wild, eh? Like, I often think about, like, all this stuff by myself, but when I'm talking to, like, yourself and other people and things, you know, like, it really really, I guess, well, plants the flag, man, to think like, wow, like it's funny how many like things have come up and opportunities and ideas, and sometimes like you just gotta, like you were saying before, get an idea, have a go. You know what I mean? Like you don't know. Like I mean, like if it doesn't work out, maybe it doesn't work out. Like that's what it is. At least you had a go. But with blank, I got to say, like I reckon that's a really cool and original. And for anyone out there that doesn't know, Blank is the character in, Let's Draw a Comic Book. Well, Let's Make a Comic Book. And which has part 2 coming out soon. That's it. There you go. And
it's going to be a different character for part 2 as well.
All right. Cool. So that's a great concept for a show. I really like that concept, man. And for anyone that hasn't watched it, basically it's I guess it's a fluid story, isn't it, Ed? Like it's fluid, like there's a character and there's artists that come on every episode and they get a panel. And they can take that story and character in any fashion, shape, place they want to go. So, and you had an enormous amount of people in that comic book. Am I correct in like recalling like 54, 55 people, 53 artists in one comic book, man? Wow. That's pretty cool. So Ed and Sis have like organized 53 artists over the space of like 15 or 16 episodes to come in and piece all this together. And from my understanding, everyone's got their panel inked except for me. And but let's thank you, Ed, for not yelling at me. You can save that till after the show. I'm sorry. But it's such a cool idea to see all these people, like incorporated into this one character. And there's a second one coming up soon, as we found out before. So that'll be really cool. Like, reach out and talk to Ed if you want to be part of that. That's great, because like we're getting that and seeing what Ed's gone through and the knowledge that he's got as well, man. Like from Ed's done the work, man. Like I reckon he's done more work than me. Like I didn't get my first comic book published until I was 41. I was scared up until that point. I was full of fear, and he was drawing and like here's Ed and there's like out there banging away from like the 90s and stuff. G'day, Don. How are you, man? I haven't seen you in ages. I hope you are well, sir. And lovely to hear from you. And it's super cool, man, to see you doing it so long ago and still going, man. With the recent reads, what was the thought process behind that, man? Was that just another, hey, we should do another show, or like, you're just enjoying doing the live stuff now, like you're feeling good about that?
To be completely honest, it's because I don't read enough comic books. Because when I'm thinking about comics and making them all day long, I tend not to read them.
Yeah.
It's like, let's get a show. Let's make a reason that I have to read something like on a weekly basis or a 2-week or fortnightly basis.
Yeah.
And because I get burnt out, but then as soon as I read a good comic, I'm like, yeah, and like I'm straight back in. But I fall out of
I like that.
But I fall out of the habit really quickly. So it was just like an idea to force me to read comics, but then it's just to force Sis to be a
host. Tell her the truth, Ed. Come on, Ed. It's just between you.
I did say when I pitched it, it's like, yeah, we'll do this and I'll press the buttons this time and you be the host. So,
man, I honestly, I couldn't press buttons and keep an eye on the comments and do this. I'm like, I don't have a brain for that. I don't know why. Maybe I'm talking myself down, but I don't know. I live in Leigh's world, so I'd forget anyone was even watching, I think, half the time, and just be busy. Oh yeah, okay, sorry, I'm not on a private call.
That's the big problem with Blank is when Let's Make a Comic Book is when you got the screen up and you're watching someone draw. And as you're saying, like the no dead air, but you're just like, oh, wow, you're watching someone draw. And it's so much fun watching someone create something in front of you.
Yeah,
and forget to talk. So we just sit and watch someone draw and then we go, oh, yeah, we're supposed to be asking questions. It is.
Yeah, it's
It's
mesmerizing.
amazing. Well, it's magic. You're seeing, it's like someone doing a card trick. Like it's creation happening in front of your eyes. Like it's.
I like
just,
how man. I like how you frame that. It is magic because it is. It is wicked to see other people in the zone, like doing their thing, drawing. I do like that as well. Yeah, it is magic. There is something cool about taking a blank, piece of paper and having an image in your mind's eye and translating that to, the paper. And like you were saying before, sometimes the image may not be what you thought it was or going to be, but sometimes it can become something totally different, man. That's the adventure. That's the magic of it, hey, because it's like, oh, and I'll do that and I'll do this. And like, I think that's why I would say that's why some of my artwork takes so long, man, because I start off with like a figure and then I just veer off and, like I'm thinking about something else or, like, and then, okay. I hope people understand that, like, because I don't, but, and it's very therapeutic, and magic is a good term for it, Ed, because it really is, man. It's really cool. Just creativity in general, man. Like whether you're cooking or like being a sword fighter or kung fu expert or whatever it is, cricket player. It's like being enjoying something in the zone is really cool. I do like your enthusiasm though. Like when I like it. You're cool, dude. Like you don't seem like you let too much bother you, man. But like I'm seeing a little, like a little spike in you there, pal. Like with like when you meet, you're like and like talking about stuff, and like it's good, man. That I like it. I can see you're passionate about it because it's like I want to see more Ed Kearsley stuff. Now with your I like the fact too that you did your own show with Sis so you could read more comics. Because that's the other downside of creativity. You spend so much time being creative that sometimes you forget to read comic books, man, like which is the thing, which is why you start, like that's the love you started you, like it's weird, like the cycles and things. But I guess it is what it is. But with what do you, with the recent reads, I also like the fact that you're getting on a wide variety of guests from the two shows that I've seen as well, man. That obviously is something that you're trying to push across, is like getting more people to give them an opportunity to, like have a shot at live streams and stuff like we were given and stuff in the day, see who else comes out, like, is that what your plan was as well?
Yeah. Well, Sis does the booking for both of the shows, so it's kind of because he knows everyone, so he stacks the shows with the, and it's also who's available too, because it's there are Thursday nights and Friday nights and stuff, and people are doing stuff. So, but it is to and like with the Let's Make a Comic Book, because it has to be a different, just the arbitrary rule that we made that it has to be a different person on every different panel. You can't have repeat guests. But with recent reads, you could have like Drink and Draw, have regulars on, like it's a more, the format's way looser because we're just talking about specific comic books. It's the the comic book's the star of the show, and Let's Make a Comic Book, this comic book's the star of the show. Like the process and the creation is what the show's about. And it's just an idea and trying to structure it into how it would work, having like the amount of people on the show is how many panels are going to be on the page and stuff. So then it could fit into, said 20-page comic would take 20 weeks to make. Because if everyone was just making up their own panel sizes, and the pages could take 4 weeks to make one page and stuff.
Oh man, I got a bad, like when you asked me on that show that time, like I was like, okay, we'll see how this goes. And I like you had it all, like, because you gotta be on it to like sort of, like understand how it all pieces together. And that's another thing, man. Like, and I don't think people don't realize that. I mean, they enjoy the shows and they enjoy, like the content that is put out on the ComX network and also on Aussieverse. But there's so like many logistics that you also have to piece together. Like Shane's always done an awesome job with that. Like I've often sat back and when we chat and go like, man, how do you keep track of this stuff? Because it's like, like, yeah, but he does, like, and getting people in and like, because you think about it, like, and just because I'll while we're talking about the subject, the fluidity of Chinwag, just so people that don't know what goes into the logistics of these sorts of things, like, you got, let's take a Friday night drinking draw. There's 10 people on the screen on a maxed out show. You know what I mean? So you got 2 hosts, they're always there, and you got Quick, there. But then you got 7 guests. Some of those are regulars. Some of those are new people. You've got to find the new people to come in and take those places. Sometimes people can tell you, yes, I'm okay on, December the 12th on a Friday night, only to find out at 3 o'clock that afternoon, like that they're not available to be there that night. And then you got to quickly try and fill gaps. And it's forever a cycle, like of change and bringing people in and communicating and text messaging and phone calls and doing all that to bring the content to you. So there's a lot of work, like Aussieverse is the same, you know what I mean? Like to get the guests to line up the dates, to have the times, to record the shows, to put them out, to get the banners. Like same goes for the ComX network, even just while we're talking about, like for me, me and Sis talk about like the show, and then like you reach out, talk to guests, like with Ed tonight, like when are you right to go? Oh, this date, yep, that date, this time, that time. I need a photo. What's the photo for the banner? I need it by this date. Get the banner to Peter Wilson, who does the banner, by this, so we can advertise it by this. And you got to share it, and you got to, oh man, like, so yeah, it's creativity all around, man. But it's cool though, Ed, like it keeps you buzzing, man. Like that's probably why we both live. That's probably why, like, I live in Leigh's world, you live in Ed's world. It's a beautiful place that we can create on our own, man. Like, and it's all good. But this is the beauty of comic books and both communities, how everyone works together, which I'm really grateful for. And I know you are too, Ed, because as Robbie just said earlier, life changing, and I'm always grateful to get to talk to people and be part of the community as well, and have the regular people supporting Chinwag and ComX and all that sort of drive. So, Ed, mate, your Patreon page, let's have a talk about that, because there'll be some people out there that'll want to check that out in the past, present, or future, watching us in 2D, 3D, 4D, and 5D, whatever plane they are on or parallel universe they're, in. So your Patreon page, what do you get with a Patreon page? Treat me like an egghead that doesn't know what a Patreon page is and learn me something, man. What's Ed Kearsley's Patreon page all about?
Well, on the Patreon page, you get there's updates on the all the books that I'm doing. If I can just put this up on the screen.
Yeah, man, you can absolutely do that, but
so this is an ad that's going in Final Dragon 1.
Yeah, that's cool.
So it's based on like the 70s, 80s, like the Marvel ones.
Yeah.
So it's got all my characters and stuff on there, and it's a Patreon Ed Kearsley art, and the same with my Instagram. So that's so there's that stuff. You see this stuff as it gets made, like from pencils to inks to colors before it comes out, and you also get all the stuff that I make, like covers a Patreon exclusive until I'm doing it in 8-page chunks, because I really like that format from doing the Final Dragon. There's a nice Peter Wilson pin up in the back.
He's a wizard, that fella.
It's like this story's all done in all in a
9-panel blocks, man.
But some like go over, like this one. See how it's 2 panels.
Yeah.
Make up the one picture. But so there's stuff like that. That's like a free book to everyone on the Patreon, and there's the Sea Mandrills from Earth, and then there's the Master Axe one, which was that book that I showed off on the Gru episode of the Drink and Draw. And I was like, this is my Gru character that I drew while I was at a job, but I had a lot of downtime, so I started making a comic book, just doing it. This was another page by page.
Oh, yeah.
And then I forgot that I made a script for it. I remember Speds asking it, so you're going to ever print that? And I was like, probably not, because they have to go through and script it all. But then I found another notebook that had the full script in it. And so it was like had all the dialogue. So I've been putting that together and putting that up on Patreon and Instagram and stuff. So
that's cool. So like these are your Patreon like things that you're showing people, so people can go there and see the whole like Ed Kearsley process of pencils through inks and finished product and that with like Cobber. Are you going to keep those like just in the mini comic format, or are you hoping at some point to be able to like translate them into like bigger formatted like proper printed comic book? Because man, you're pumping out some stories. You could have like a trade paperback full of like a variety of stories, man. Like,
that's I could do an anthology with lots of different stuff, but because I keep jumping from project to project, I never really finish anything. But so Cobber's going to be about 5 parts, so 8, like about 45 pages, and then have that as one big book.
Yeah.
At the end. So that was my story for Presents Noir. Because I was like, I don't have a This was like, have you got a story for that? I was like, nah. I was like, oh, hang on. And it just took me so long to do it. And then the format of that book changed. Instead of the quarterly one, I think it's a yearly book now or something like that.
Yeah.
So I'm just doing it as its own thing.
Yeah.
Instead of pre-publishing it in the Presents Noir. So, but that's like the origin of that.
Yeah, no, that's cool, man. Because I like it. Dude, it's lovely. It's like more comic books the better, man. Like I reckon it's like, and it makes you feel good, like you were saying. Like the whole creative process and stuff. So, like one other thing I want to talk to you about is now. Recently, I spoke to Louis Joyce, and Louis Joyce is a mad keen rollerblader. Likes his skateboarding and stuff like that. Now, I know you a mad keen skateboarder as well, mate, because you've got a radical skateboard and stuff. Like which I've seen around the traps and on the interwebs, and the relationship between your skateboarding and your comic books and stuff, man, like just things that just make you feel good. They bring out, like some good stuff in you, man. Like so you find they're like conjoined, I guess, really, like on a process.
Now the skateboarding's more of a thing that you can't think of anything else while you're skateboarding. You're going to get hurt real bad. So like you go for a skate and it clears your brain a bit.
Yep. And then clears that space for you to come in and do some artwork and some family time and stuff like that, man. That's cool. Like that's good to have those two spaces, it's I saw a video of you, I don't know, man, must have been like, I don't know, 12 months ago, maybe within the last 12 months, I suppose. And it was you on a skateboard, and you were, oh man, you were flying down like some street in Melbourne, man. I don't know who was filming you, but it's like, it was like, and there's Ed, and and you were just, man, like didn't look like you had a care in the world, man. Like, and I'm thinking to myself, like, like there's Ed going at the speed of sound, like down some street in Melbourne, man. There's cars everywhere. Ed don't care. Ed's like, happy as Larry, man. But the skateboarding, was that a young thing?
Yeah. So that
Yeah,
was like the late 80s. There was a bit of a skateboard boom.
yeah.
And so, yeah, I picked it up when I was a little kid, and then I dropped off with that as I started to focus more on comics. So I and the scene changed with skating changed a lot in the 90s.
Yeah.
So still hanging out with, like, all my friends were still skaters, and then when in the later 90s, when I started to get into the punk scene, like a lot of the punk kids were skaters and still skate and stuff, but I don't get out as much as I used to, but it's still
But you enjoy it when you do.
yeah, it's just that focus. It's I guess people like love riding motorbikes, because if you're thinking about other shit when you're riding a motorbike,
It can go
you're
bad.
done for. So yeah,
Yeah.
especially the older you get, like you fall harder. So
Yeah.
like every time you fall off, like there's another permanent injury. So
Another permanent injury, hopefully not too permanent. Yeah, it's yeah, you definitely don't bounce back as you get older, I tell you. It's yeah, I don't know. There wasn't a super. I appreciate the skateboarding thing. I don't know. We didn't really have much of that sort of stuff in Townsville. We were like just trying to think. It was more like, look, I mean, rugby league and like cricket sort of town, I guess, man. Really, there were skateboarders. Don't get me wrong, man. There's more skateboarders now. Like I can appreciate them, bouncing off, like things and doing some amazing stuff. I can't believe, like, man, and they lose the board and then they just, like a little Spider-Man across, pick it up, flip it over, and then off they go again. Like, don't even bat an eyelid. And I'm thinking, like, damn, I would have pulled like every muscle in my body doing that. I wouldn't be sitting here today if I was on a skateboard yesterday, man. I think I'd be in traction somewhere. But like it's it's cool. So, Carrie, Ed can also belt out a few tunes at karaoke. Is there anything he cannot do? LOL. Are we veering into a pickles moment there, Carrie and Ed? Is there anything you'd like to tell me about this mysterious karaoke evening that happened not too long back?
That was after the supernova, and we were trying to think of a place to meet up, and I was like, my mate's got a pub in the city, we can go meet up there. And when we got there, there was a punk band playing, so we got to listen to a punk band, and then it was the Mac brothers were like, well, let's go do karaoke, and so they found one on their phone, and it was just around the corner, and me and Sizzard had a couple of beers by then, and they're like, oh, let's do a duet. And the only duet I could think of was Islands in the Stream with Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton.
Yeah, and so, which one of you was Kenny?
Yeah, we didn't think of that beforehand, and we also didn't know any of the words except for the chorus. So we were really surprised when the song started, and it's going real fast and changing through the things, and went, and then just when it came to the chorus, we just started belting out the chorus.
Yeah.
And then Sis was like, oh, Billy Joel. I know Billy Joel. He's like, yeah, there's the skateboards at the...
Oh, wow. Ed's mate has a radical skateboard mounted on his pub ceiling. That's cool, man.
At the Last Chance Rock and Roll bar in the city.
Yeah.
So, and then Scissor's like, Billy Joel, we'll do this Billy Joel song. I know every Billy Joel song, we'll go do it. And then so we get up for that. And then because it's karaoke, it's kind of MIDI versions with it's not any album or live track that you've ever heard before. It's a different one. This has got thrown off straight away. And then we just did the same thing and just waited for the chorus and then just yelled the choruses.
Yeah. I was randomly sent about a 30-second clip from Spedsy that Sunday night of you and Shane up on the stage singing and jigging around, man, like really, tearing it up, mate, like, so and I did have a laugh at that. I thought, like, good on you, like, after a good weekend, man, and again, connection, seeing everyone touching base from all over Australia and stuff now, and meeting up at conventions and all that. Like, there you go. Look at that. Hey, look at that picky. There we go. Little shock for everyone there. If you didn't see that, that was just a nice little snap of the evening's festivities, and it was a cool picture. So you should hang on to that, and I hope it's up on the fridge or somewhere, like cool. It was a funny night, Nick May. There you go, man. Yeah, it's good stuff. I was very envious of all you getting together that night. I would have liked to have been there and met you all in person, because I know you all so well over the live streams and through your work and all of our stuff we do together and that. All right, Ed, as we wind down, my friend, what are some of the last, I guess, what's your free-form thoughts on comic books? How you feeling about the community, your place in it? Like, how would you like to leave your Chinwag tonight? With what message, or however you would like to express yourself?
I suppose I don't know, like, my place in it is just that I make comic books, and it's good to know that there's other people that do it too. And yeah, just if you've got the itch to try and make something, give it a go, because the thing about comic books is, like we were saying before, it's such a bugger to get anything done. You'll find out really quick if you don't like it, and there's no harm in trying.
I think that's pretty cool, man. I think it's
give it a
well,
go.
you are the man that coined the phrase. I'll drop the rather expletive part of this quote, but it was comic books just beeping do it, which I think is pretty much a really good quote for it, because it is about having fun. As you can see here tonight, Ed's been doing it for a very long time, and he's still plugging away at it, and it's still, you can see the enthusiasm, like, coming out with how he gets keen on things and talking about stuff, and lots of journeys. Ed's journey motivates me to keep going. Seeing him get better motivates me to keep going. And, there's other people watch the show and may watch this in the future, or, as we've said, the past, or wherever, you're watching it, and whatever timeline or parallel universe. And you may get, motivated by comic books. It's a great storytelling medium.
I think it's the strongest one.
Yeah.
It's the most primal thing. Like, it's cave art, like, is telling stories through drawing. Like, it's the first thing that humans did. It's just a more evolved version of that. Like, it is the most primal form of storytelling.
Yeah, I agree, man. I agree. And thank you, Kerry. We both, I think, had fun this evening. And Nick May, I think Ed is an inspiration. He's busy. He's got a family. He's skateboarding. He's working. He's drawing comic books. He's keeping a social life going. He seems to have everything in balance. He's relaxed. He's cool. He loves his comic books. Good life there, man, like, and how, like, where you are, like, so I think that's something that's really awesome, man. And it's great that man, I'm very grateful that I've had the opportunity to know you for a couple of years now. I don't, sadly, as we said last time, I haven't seen you for such a long time up until the because we just haven't been able to cross paths. But I'm really, really grateful that you're now part of Chinwag, man, and like your story and everything's here now, collected, and for people to check out anytime they want. Because it's very motivating. And don't forget that when you're down, like you don't feel like doing anything, creativity is a great thing. You know what I mean? Like it's great for your mental health. It's great for, um, meeting people that are like-minded as both of the communities, ComX and Aussieverse. Like that's what it's all here for. It's here for love. It's here for, passion, and for the comics medium, drawing, writing, creating, learning, listening, a whole swag of things, really. And across both of the channels, you will probably find, I'd actually suggest you will definitely find things that are worthwhile your interest, whether you're a collector, a creator, or someone just on the periphery that just has a general knowledge, is looking for an in to learn more or touch base with people. Everyone I've met through my time here has always been gracious enough to have a yarn, pass on messages, or like hints, or things that we all learn from each other. We all try and get better, and share in each other's growth, which I think is a really awesome thing too. And the best part is, I think majority of us like to share each other's success. And we feel good for when like our mates and people of the community are out there doing things that make them happy, because really that's all you can do in life, is just try and find things that make you happy and bring you peace. And this does for me, and I know it does for Ed too. So that's the best thing. Ed, thank you so much, man, for being on Chinwag tonight, mate. And everyone, that's Edmund Kearsley. You can find him on Instagram at Ed Kearsley Art. Go and check him out. He's on Facebook. He's on his Patreon page. He is in ComX comic books, and he's in the ComX shop. And the ComX shop is a sponsor of the show. It's got over 100 Australian independent comic books. If you want to be in the ComX shop, just reach out to the ComX Network website, or Sis on Facebook. Have a talk to him. There's over 100 titles in there at the moment. There's a $9 flat shipping rate, and you don't have to buy my comic books, but buy somebody's comic books and help them, support them, because like one sale can make someone feel really good, and it can give them the strength to go on and bring out a second comic book. And when they do that, they feel better, and there's just a big symbiote energy that happens around the place, and it's great. And it's a beautiful thing to make people happy. So that's what we want to do. All right, so again, thank you, Ed. Next week's guest is someone that I've wanted to meet for, I don't know, since I dragged a comic book out of a show bag a long, long time ago. And it's Mr. Dylan Naylor.
I was going to say that when you said show bag.
Yeah,
Darren Dill.
Yeah, so he's on next week, and I've wanted to talk to him for a long time. So again, I'm a lucky dude meeting all these people and being mates with them. So, thank you to everyone. All right, just remember your health, look after people, be nice to people. A smile can go a long way. A smile can turn someone's life around. It can, it can just make their day. And sometimes, that's all you need to give you a little bit of a pep in your step. And, just try. That's all you can do. Do the best you can. That's all anyone asks, and that's all you can do. So don't forget, Chinwag is and always will be made with love, and community is unity. So we'll see you all next week, and thank you for watching, and thank you for your support. See you later. Good night.
Bye.
This show is sponsored by the ComX shop. Check out comx.cx for all things ComX and find out what ComX is all about. We hope you enjoyed the show.